Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I am Moody and I'm a 3D artist with a ton of experience, the most relevant being sculpting and modelling. In this video I'm going to be sculpting BEAST-GOHAN. This is a sculpt that my son suggested to me a while back, and as I had so much fun sculpting Gogeta and the video did quite well, here we are. If this one does as well as the other ones, as the original, I may start doing a Dragon Ball series, so we'll see how all that goes. Anyway, with all that being said, let's get into it and start sculpting BEAST-GOHAN. Okay, so here we go. Same as usual, we're going to start with some solid reference. I'm going to do the same as I did before and start with his head so that it's done and I can use it to kind of gauge his height and that is whether his proportions are correct, because you know you don't want a character with a small head. I want to also get as much as I can done with the symmetry on, just to help with the overall proportions and just to keep things looking accurate on each side of the model, because although he's an anime character, I am going to be doing semi-realistic anatomy, so yeah. I'm going to keep working on his head and just tinkering with it until I get something that kind of resembles Gohan. So yeah, let's let the time-lapse play out and I'll jump in whenever anything relevant pops up. So I'm just going to drop this eye in there and move it around a little to fill the space, just so that we've got an eye there. And I think I'm almost done with the head, so in just a moment we'll move on to the hair. I have a tutorial coming on how I made the eyeball that I reuse, so keep an eye out for that, guys. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the head overall. It looks like Gohan, so we're going to start on his Super Saiyan hair. We're going to do very similar to what we did with the A2 model. So we're going to use the tube tool. We're going to set the profile to have a kind of rounded-ish type shape, and then we're just going to keep reusing the same hair piece or hair strand and just keep making hair and posing it. I'm going to go down the middle of the hair and get any of the hair done first that doesn't have symmetry or doesn't have hair on the opposite side, and then I'm going to build up his left side, and I'll mirror that over each hair over. I don't really worry too much about reusing the splines on this hair, because his hair basically stays that exact shape when he's fighting, and I don't think we have to worry about it too much. So once I'm happy with one side, I'll start to mirror the hairs over and call the hair done. So let's let the time lapse play out and you can see how I get this Super Saiyan hair done. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. We're going to move on to the body and the overall proportions of the body. I found this really good Saiyan anatomy chart. I'm not sure who the artist was. I did try and find it, but I'm terrible at this type of thing. So we're going to use that as the overall build and bulk of him. And we're going to use the Gohan turnaround to just try and kind of rein it all back in so that he actually looks like Gohan, because Gohan's slightly taller than Goku and probably less bulky on the top. So, oh, here's another good example of why I set up my base mesh the way I did, because if you look here, there we go, I start moving around the individual muscles to give the arms a bit more form. And it's just a little bit easier. It just gets you set up and ready to go, so when you do finally start sculpting, the overall shape and mass is there. So yeah, let's let this time lapse play out. I'll tinker around with the overall shape using the reference as a guide, and keep playing with those muscles there, and yeah, let's just get this guy formed out, and we'll then pose him up. I do want to note here that I realise his head is kind of small. I will come in and I will fix that later, because at a certain point when I'm sculpting it, he starts to look like another character called Jiren, and Jiren's super duper bulky on top with like kind of small legs. So we get to a point where he starts to look a bit like him. So I'll come back and address the size of his head a little later. What we're doing here with the fingers is because I joined and mirrored the arms over and the legs, I have to reorganize the hierarchy so that I'm able to pose this guy. So here we go, we're going to start working on the pose now. I don't think I need to talk too much about this overall. I did try like 3 or 4 different poses. They just didn't work. It all started to look a bit just so I went back to the original pose, which is closer to what I'm doing here. So you can see that. I think it's good to see the choices and the just the things that you have to do in order to settle on something, because like I said, I wasn't happy with several of these poses, so I just went with the classic Kamehameha in the end, and yeah, it all seemed to work out fine. So let's let this time lapse play out, and you can see me trying to choose a good pose for this guy. So once I've settled on the pose, I'll go back in and I'll just start tweaking small things, moving the muscle around again there. A good reason to have that extra mesh on your base. And even here, the neck was starting to look weird and it was throwing the whole model out, so I separated it and lined up the neck again so I could see where the tendons join from the neck to the head. And yeah, overall just keep working it, working the muscles and sculpting them in a little bit just to make it feel a little bit more proportionately correct. Yeah, we'll let this play out and you can see how I get on with this pose before I actually start doing merges and sculpting in this anatomy. So this is where I kind of start thinking he looks a little like Jiren, but unfortunately I go all the way through merging everything before I settle, because I kind of thought it was just the pose that was making him look extra large, but no, it was because he was extra large and broad on the shoulders. So again, we'll let this play out a little. All I'm doing here is roughing in the forms, because a lot of him you won't see, so I spend more time on the torso and the upper body than I do the legs, because he's wearing he's wearing a gi. I think it's Piccolo's gi. So you don't really see any of that. I end up sculpting in some rough forms for the legs, but most of the time spent on the upper body here, just trying to get it looking right. So yeah, just marking out landmarks on the back for some of the muscle. I think another problem I had here was I put too much form and too much onto the lats, and it just made him look really wide from the back. So yeah, we're just going to keep going, adding form and filling out some of this muscle, adding flesh to the back there, particularly where the arm's drawn back. So it would pinch the back a little bit more on that side and push some of that muscle up and into the middle. So yeah, we'll let this play out again, and you can see some of the choices I make as I'm sculpting here to bring that left side particularly back and around, so that it looks a bit more like there's more tension under the muscles. And yeah, here just this is really rough anatomy work on the legs, because like I said, you don't actually see it. So with a merge on the shoulders and arm, and the shoulders and upper body, sorry. And this is important. This is where it's important to have anatomy, some reference in front of you, because for a little while I think it looks okay from most angles, but on his right arm, from a certain angle, it looks like his tricep actually comes out from above his shoulder muscle, and a friend of mine pointed that out to me. So yeah, it's important to have decent reference for this kind of stuff, and even when you do, some things kind of get through. So here's the energy ball for his Kamehameha. Just put it there as a bit of reference and a guide and things like that. So yeah, we'll let this play out, because all I'm doing is roughing in some anatomy and trying to get this proportionately feeling good. So yeah, let's let this play out for a little while. Here's where before I go quiet again, here's where I decided he looked a little like Jiren. So I scaled his upper body in a little bit, and just started trying to pull him in, because yeah, the Gohan's a bit more taller and a bit more slender. Still ripped, but like just a bit taller and thinner than the other guys. Yeah, using the high tool. This is a great tool for this type of stuff, because his arms were kind of getting in the way, and I needed to fill out under that rib cage again. Yeah, this is the shoulder I'm talking about. It just feels a little smaller than the other shoulder. I do address this in a little while, but it feels a little smaller than the other shoulder, yeah, and it feels like the tricep is a little too high. So I don't know if I do it in the video. I may come back and do this while I'm not recording, but I do end up sorting it out a little bit. So yeah, let's let the time lapse play out while I sculpt in the muscle on these arms and add some form and contact points where his right arm is pushing around in front of him. So yeah, we'll let this play out for a little while, and you can just see some of the decisions I make here. So that was my final merge. This means the whole model's together. So again, lower the opacity on the smooth brush, set the options to dynamic topology, and yeah, just smooth out these areas, and it fills in the holes really well. I also use this to lower the resolution of the character sometimes, because like I said, decimate, it's not very accurate. It's very good, but I think sometimes you lose too much detail on the model, so I like full control over that. So yeah, I set the I set the strength of the smooth brush really low with dynamic topology on, and yeah, it kind of does what Decimate does but with more control. So yeah, let's keep filling out these forms and adding these contact points where the arms are moving the upper body around. Here I start playing with the energy ball just to try and make sure that it's going to look okay and it's going to work. What I do here is I actually set the mesh itself to be always unlit. I turn the opacity up so that it's not too see-through, because otherwise the reflection doesn't work. And then I go into the render settings and I will turn on let me find out what that's called for you in a little while. But yeah, I think it's bloom. I turn the bloom on and turn it up and play with the settings on that. And yeah, it gives a glow. I do the same thing with the electricity in a little while. He has some electricity coming off of him, like his little zappy zaps for when he's powered up. And yeah, it's a great little way to get a glow in there and just make it look a bit more visually interesting. So yeah, play around with it and see what you can come up with. So this one we do actually have uncovered hands, so I'm gonna, there we go, I'm adding the tendons into the wrist, chucking a bit more form into the hands, and later I come back and I will sculpt in the fingernails and everything like that. I don't mind sculpting hands, I used to struggle with it, so it's kind of fun. Here I'm adding more flesh around the crease of the arm, because when you crease your arm and the skin presses against the skin of the forearm, it will bunch up and it will sort of like, you know, push out here like what we're doing here. So yeah, it's good to check these things using your own arm if you struggle with these types of things. If it looks weird, make the shape with your own arm and just try and notice what you don't have in the model. So not that my arms are as ripped as Gohan's, but yeah, I would just say make the shape as best you can with your own arm if you can't find a decent bit of reference, and you'll see what I mean by, you know, the flesh contact points and things like that. So here I felt like his left arm was a bit thin on the underside. So what I ended up doing was, you know, hiding most of the body, masking off underneath the arm, and then just filling out the inside of the arm a little, so it didn't feel so thin. One arm felt thinner than the other. So yeah, keep an eye on these things, guys, and just do your best to keep everything sort of as close to the other side as possible, you know. Add the eyebrows in, because I'll be honest, I forgot about those. And yeah, again, using the tube tool, we're going to remesh it, and then just using the move tool again, we're going to try and pose it up so that it's in contact with his eye. We're just going to flip it and move it around until it lines up with the other side, and we're going to call the eyebrows done. Anime eyebrows, easy. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the body overall, so we're going to move on to his clothing now, modelling his gi. Again, just using a mask extract, and we're just going to start like fleshing out the gi and where some of these creases are. I don't think this is really how clothing creases, but this is the style of the show. This is what they do on most of their gis, so to get that kind of classic Dragon Ball look, we're going to sculpt it this way and just yeah, get the folds crossing over and under each other there, and choosing points where they might crease, and just keep filling out the forms and bulking this guy up a little bit so that the gi matches a little bit more closely to what the reference does. I had to take some artistic liberties here because I don't have a reference of him in this pose that I can spin around in, but yeah, overall I was happy with the gi. I go back and forward on some of these creases and where they should be coming from, but yeah, overall I'm happy with it in the end. Yeah, I would say the same as usual, guys, with the clothing. I would try and find points where it creases and draw out your lines and your creases from there. Again, the best thing to do is find a bit of reference if you can. I don't expect everybody to have a gi in their house, but like, you know, you can bend your leg and at least see where the creases come from or where the fabric bunches up. So yeah, like particularly with this, just take the artistic license. You know, let it form as best you can, and you know, yeah, Gohan's gi was tricky in some ways. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the gi bottoms overall. We're going to start working on his belt. I think, is that a belt or a waistband? And yeah, we're going to do the same again. We're just going to follow the reference as best we can. Sculpt it in around the trousers there so we don't get any clipping. And yeah, just like I said, take some of your own artistic choices here, and try and sculpt in the creases around the belt as best you can. Sculpting that piece of clothing was relatively easy because it was all bunched up, so yeah, just sculpting the creases as best you can and try and keep it so that they look a little not so uniform, because it's pretty boring to look at. You want to create visual interest as many places as you can. So okay, we're going to start on the top half of the gi. What I did here again, I extruded some mesh out from the actual base, and I'm going to start sculpting up so that I've got the shapes that I want, and then I'm going to do the same as I did with my Simpson sculpt, and I'm going to extract from the mesh that I sculpt that looks kind of close to the gi. I'm going to extract from that back down towards the body so that it's not floating away off of the body as much. So yeah, let's let this play out, because all I'm doing is sculpting in fabric creases here, making a couple of decisions about how I want the gi to look. And yeah, I think this is the type of thing that you'll just go backwards and forwards with, guys. Like, you know, sculpt in some creases that you like the look of. If you're happy with it, keep moving. If not, try something different. It's just a lot of backwards and forwards on this type of stuff, you know. So yeah, let's let it play out, and you can again see some of the choices I make on the creases here. I did have it folded underneath so that it was kind of like a closed jacket type gi, and I move away from that because I realized that that's not what his gi looks like from the reference. So yeah, let's let this play out and you can see some of the choices I make. So masking off the area that I want to keep and then extracting it down inwards so that it comes closer to his body. I think at this point I'm just going to be doing a lot of backwards and forwards, looking around the model, picking things out, working on that top half of the gi, and just trying to, every time I notice something like the shoulder there, I'm just going to keep coming back in and tweaking it, but mostly working on the gi here. So we're going to start sculpting his shoes. This is a relatively simple sculpt because he's got the same outfit as Piccolo, and basically Piccolo's shoes are very, how do I put this? They're very old school. They just look like one piece of leather wrapped around his foot with a base on it. You know, maybe they're comfortable, maybe they're not, but this is what he's wearing. So again, I'm going to choose points where I feel like the foot might be twisted. And you know, try and draw the creases out from there to make it at least look believable, like the material's being gripped by the flesh underneath, right? Mirroring it across, joining it, mirroring it, and then doing a little re-sculpt on it just to get it to line up with this other foot. But same again, you know, choose points to sculpt from. These are leather bands. I didn't really do too much with these. I think what I ended up doing was making them look like straps. Here we go. Just because it was a bit more visually interesting. I think they might be leather bands, but that just looked plain and there wasn't a lot going on with it. So yeah, here we are with some bandages around his wrist for support, I guess. But yeah, mostly because it was a bit more visually interesting, I went with these. So. So here we go with the hand sculpt. I'm going to raise the level of detail on the dino topology, and I'm going to start sculpting in these fingernails. You do need a reasonable amount of detail on the mesh to do this, so this is one of the reasons. Like I said, I won't use the decimate, because if I did this and then decimate it to bring down the bring down the number of points in the model, I would lose a lot of detail around these fingers. So like I said, I kind of manually decimate by using the Dino Topo tool. So, but yeah, again, just sculpting the fingernails, masking the fingernails, flip the mask and rotate the fingernails out a little, and then just use the edge tool to tidy it up. Yeah, that's about it really. There's not really a lot that goes into these. I'm probably oversimplifying, but yeah, it's going to be a lot of the same. Like it is here, for example, the crease in the skin where the fingers are lower than the one before. Just, you know, pay attention to the reference, or use your own hand as reference and pay attention to what you've got there. So yeah, let's let these this hand sculpt play out, and you know, I'll jump in if anything interesting pops up. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with all that, and here we go with the painting. Same as before, we're going to do a base skin and a top skin, and we're going to lower the opacity of the top skin and start painting the textures and colour underneath it. So starting with a red, we're going to add anywhere where it needs to feel a bit warmer, anywhere where there's, like I said before, blood vessels or capillaries near the surface, we're going to start adding red to it. I'll go through all the different colours on each layer. Again, with the smooth tool, lower the smooth all the way down, the strength of the smooth to nothing, and you'll get a nice soft blur on the reds underneath. Here I do I call it a manual decimation to the model. So it just started to get a bit heavy here again because I left on the Dino topology while I was painting by mistake. So the top started to get really heavy. So yeah, manually decimating here using the Dino Topo tool. No strength on the brush, but smooth it out with zero strength on the brush. Yeah, and you'll it basically does what decimate does, but with more control. Okay, so we're going to add the blue here, the under the skin. So this is going to add depth to where there's crevices in the muscle. I add it to the wrist here because that's where some of the larger veins run through, and if you look at your hand, the back of your hand, you'll see the blue veins running between your knuckles. So anywhere where there are darker veins, add it there, and anywhere you want depth, add it there. I'm going to do the same with the yellow here. I'm going to add that where there should be bone or where there should be fat. And again, then you'll just have to go in and play with the levels in the layers, in the layer stack there, to get the result you're looking for. So we're going to move on to the gear and everything here and add base colors, and then I'm going to add probably what painters would call a wash, to just make it feel a little bit dirtier. Oh, sorry, I move on to the hands here, to the fingernails, to get the hands finished and out of the way. So yeah, my mistake. We're going to do the fingernails here, a slightly glossy finish on them, add the white around the tip and at the cuticles, and then lower the opacity down because it felt a little too solid of a colour. So I lower the opacity and let some of the skin shine through from the base of it, from the bottom. Same with the lips here. He looks a bit like he's wearing lipstick, but again, lower the opacity down and you'll get some of the skin breaking through underneath it, and it should help with the blending of the colours and the blending of the layers. So here we're going to move on to adding a dirt pass, just to make everything look a bit more worn and a little bit more realistic and believable. I don't actually go in and add a dirt pass to the flesh because in the movie He has been fighting and his clothes are a bit dirty, but as soon as he hits Super Saiyan Beast, it's like he hasn't been touched. So I leave the clothes a little dirty and I let the flesh stay a little bit more clean. I also think it gives you a little bit more of an idea of the flesh and how warm the flesh can feel, and how the way that I paint makes it feel a little bit more like realistic flesh. So I didn't want to just smother it in dirt. But the gi, however, yes, he's been fighting in those clothes. I gotta say as well, in the movie, when he first goes BEAST-GOHAN, absolutely amazing scene. Loved it. So here we go, adding in the eyes. I'm going to be doing a tutorial on these, how I made these. They're basically, I made them as eyes that I could reuse and easily paint to change colour if I need to. I also realised that I don't change the colour of these. I probably should have changed them to purple, which is kind of the colour of his aura. But you know, it's an oversight. I missed it, so never mind. Next time, guys. We're going to go in and add some electricity for his zappy zaps, as they call it, on Team 4 Star's version of Dragon Ball. And yeah, just change those to purple because, I did realise this was the colour of his aura, but you know, the eyes was just a missed opportunity. So we'll let this play out. I'm just adding electricity here. I do ground it so that it hits the floor and feels grounded at some point, but yeah, adding a base to it as well because I want it to feel like a figurine. Like I want to ultimately paint figurines, so I always add a base like this just to ground them a little bit. I do toy with the idea of lighting his hair up. I didn't go with it because it felt too much like Super Saiyan 2, and that's not what this form is. This is like his ultimate form. So yeah, I didn't go with that in the end. I'm going to start setting up a 3-point light here. I toy with the idea of using the Kamehameha wave to light that side of him, but no, it washed out the colours a bit too much. So we go with a standard 3-point light setup here. Main light, fill light and rim light. So there we go. I'm extremely happy with that. I'm pleased with how that came out. You can see on the right arm there where I did the adjustments so that it feels like the tricep comes out from under the shoulder. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed this content, give it a like, a share, subscribe to me, and if this video does well, then I'll consider doing a Dragon Ball series because I really love Dragon Ball, and I really do love sculpting these guys. Like the Dragon Ball characters are probably some of my favourite to sculpt. They're just fun, they're not too realistic, and I don't think they take themselves too seriously. So yeah, with all that being said, guys, thanks for watching. If you're still here watching now, then you know, thanks even more. I appreciate you. Thanks to everybody that's subscribed so far and supported me, and yeah, I'll catch you in the next one, guys.